Okay. One of the parts or pieces of our standard talks about providing reasons that are supported by facts and details. Okay, that's that's part B of the standard that we're working on. And so, if you recall from yesterday we determined we determined our thesis, right? And we started to plan, and we put our thesis on our planning sheet in our cloud. And then we talked about, if you remember, the subtopics that were in the text set that we read. Those things that kept coming up over and over again as we were reading. And we talked about how we should write those things into main idea sentences. Now, the text set, you remember, you wrote, because yesterday's lesson was about annotating as well. And so yesterday you read through and you annotated, and this is where your annotation is going to come into play when we're talking and thinking about how are we going to support our main idea sentences. So before we start, let's share some of the main idea sentences that you wrote. Take your plan out, your planning sheet out, and remember, on your plan, your thesis statement is in your cloud, and then your main ideas are in the boxes, and you should have 3 of them. You should have 3 of them. Now, if you are struggling to come up with a main idea sentence to go along with one of the subtopics, then I think it might be good for you to turn your ears on so that you can hear some of the other things that people wrote, and perhaps it will inspire you to either revise or change the main idea sentence you had. Okay, remember your main idea sentence should support whatever thesis you chose. And we identified 2 from the prompt. Either that zoos are helpful to animals or that zoos are harmful to animals. Sean, share one of your main idea sentences.
The care in zoos has improved over time.
The care in zoos has improved over time. Okay? You see how that's a statement? Okay? It's a fact. And it's a big enough idea that he's going to be able to find some details. So I'm going to write your Now, if your thesis statement was that zoos were harmful to animals, then your main idea would still talk about the care, but it would talk about the care being bad, right? Should say does not do not. Whoever's tapping your pencil, please stop. Or how about if we say is not appropriate? So if somebody is for zoos, they might say this. If someone is against zoos, they might say this. Okay, give me another main idea. Bryn?
Animals are not healthy in cages.
Okay. Can we change that to enclosures? Would you be okay if I changed that to enclosures? Okay, so we say animals not happy. In enclosures. Okay? So, how could we turn this into a main idea sentence? How could we turn this sentence into a main idea sentence for zoos? Aliana?
Zoos enclosures have improved so animals feel at home.
Okay. And watch how I'm going to do this. Zoos, because they're plural, but the enclosures belong to them. So I'm going to put the apostrophe after the zoo. We call this plural possessive. Plural possessive. How did you end it? So animals are what?
Feel at home.
Oh, okay. So animals feel at home. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
All right. So it's a full and complete sentence. It doesn't contain a detail. All right? Because remember that if we just have a detail as our main idea sentence, we're not going to be able to write enough. We're just not going to be able to write enough to have a decent paragraph. Okay, and that's what we're working for. Okay, so let's think, because we have these main ideas, obviously, that go with different. Zoos are helpful to animals, or zoos are harmful to animals. I'm not going to give a third one because I want some of you to do some of your own thinking and not copy off of the board and write your essay. So hopefully that's giving you some ideas on either how to revise your own main ideas or inspiring you to come up with that third one, because it's always that third one that's really difficult to identify. Okay, so now the next step, because remember we're given a text set, we're given a prompt, and we need to have a way of approaching it, have a strategy, have steps to follow so that we know what to do. So our next step now is going to be to look at our annotations. Look at the breadcrumbs you left for yourself. Look at the little words that you wrote out to the side. That's going to help you to find some of the details to go with this. So who can give me a detail that would go in either the care of zoos has improved over time or the care zoos provide is not appropriate? Can anybody think of a detail in here about care? Okay, we want to be careful that we're not talking about enclosures, right? So what kind of care would we have outside of that? Outside of enclosures. I remember reading something about food. Take a look in your annotated notes. What did you read about food, Jerexy? Okay, they were not feeling, they did not feed the animals the proper food, and they died. Can you tell me what paragraph that was in? Okay, so you remembered reading it, but you didn't annotate. Who can tell me what paragraph it was in? What paragraph it is in? Where the animals were fed the improper food and they died. Everybody should be looking in their text set. Kendall, did you find it? Jerexia, you found it? Paragraph 28. Everybody turn to paragraph 28. Okay, so in paragraph 28, and this is the symbol for paragraph. It's like a backwards double P. In paragraph 28, it talks about the zebras. It says, zebras at the National Zoo in Washington, D.C. starved to death because of insufficient or incorrect food. And the same zoo's red panda died after eating rat poison. So we're also talking about paragraph 28, but now we're talking about the pandas. If this is on my planning sheet, I know that these are the details that are going to support this. Anything else, Elizabeth?
That they don't get enough exercise. Because I was reading and it said that if they get taken out of like their habitat and then go to an aquarium or a cave, they usually swim about 100 miles in one day. And
Okay.
they can't get enough exercise for that.
Okay, that's true. But what I'm afraid of, because we have to be really careful, one of our earlier lessons we had talked about how we have to be super, super careful to make sure that our main ideas don't overlap. And the exercise certainly is a care, but I'm thinking that it might be something that we're going to be talking about when we talk about enclosures. Okay? So we really want to make sure that we are keeping away from overlapping our main ideas or overlapping our details. Okay, anybody else find the inappropriate food or inappropriate care? Galila? You raised your hand. I thought you found something. We're not talking about programs right now. Right now, what we're doing is we're looking for details that supports the idea that the care in zoos, the care that zoos provide is not appropriate. Did you see something, Jaden?
Yes.
Okay.
It says, the only thing zoos do is make animals crazy. In paragraph 8.
In paragraph 8. Okay, so are you saying that you're referring to like the care that animals have a mental illness? Because that's what that was the last sentence in that paragraph and the last sentence in that source, and that was sort of like they were saying their thesis statement over again, their main idea. Zika, did you find something?
I was saying the same thing, but yeah, the mental illness that they put them in cages.
Well, we certainly could do that. We could definitely put down mental illness here, and it's mentioned several times. As a matter of fact, it's mentioned so many times that I almost think it should have its own main idea. I almost think it should be here. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean that you couldn't put it here, but if you put it here, just like with the talking about the exercise, we have to be careful because we don't want it to overlap. You don't want to say mental illness causes mental illness, right? When over here, you have that zoos cause a mental illness. okay? Because you don't want it to be overlapping. So it really depends on your essay.
Okay.
Natalie, paragraph 4. I think that is talking about the habitat. Because it says he was removed from the natural habitat in Iceland. Now he did die 4 years later of air, sunlight, and companionship. So they don't really go into a lot of detail about the enclosure being bad. Okay. So again, it's that same thing. We don't want to have overlapping main ideas. We don't want to have overlapping details either. You can only use the detail in one of your main idea paragraphs. You shouldn't use it in all of them. Haley?
The enclosure taken out because it says that animals like whales and elephants are accustomed to sailing up to 100 miles in one day and 900 feet earthwards too. And within right
So I'm actually going to go right ahead and put that paragraph out. I'm going to put that under the other main idea. Okay? We're talking about animals are not happy in enclosures. That would be paragraph 5. I'm talking about aquatic animals. Okay, can you see how that detail would support this? They're not happy in their enclosures. Their enclosures are not appropriate. Their enclosures are not adequate. And one example are the aquatic animals from paragraph 5. Okay, so if we can't really use that here and use it here, so we want to make sure that we have enough details, and our goal is to find 3. Okay, if you can't find 3 details to support your main idea, that may be telling you that there's something wrong with your main idea. Okay, if you can't find 3 details that you could talk about, or even 2 that you could talk a lot about, then it may be that your main idea is a detail. Okay, Natalie? Paragraph 27. Everybody turn to paragraph 27, please. Okay, and again, paragraph 27 is going to go here because it talks about Maggie. And actually, let's put down elephants because Maggie is a different. In the paragraph before, so Maggie's described in the paragraph before. Bryn?
I have one for in the pages, paragraph 2. Talk about the reason in the pages.
Okay, and that actually those are actually the symptoms of the mental illness. So if you have a main idea here, okay, say for example, if you put zoos cause mental illness in animals, that would support that. All right, so, and those zoocosis is the name of it. And there's lots and lots and lots of description about that mental illness, what it looks like, how the animals might be feeling if they're experiencing this. Okay, so I'm going to stop here because I don't want to give you all of the details that you're going to use in your essay, but I did want to model for you so that you could see what the process looks like. This is exactly what you need to be able to do. This is exactly the thinking that you need to do. So just think about the steps that we took. We started yesterday, remember? We looked at the prompt. And from the prompt, we knew that our thesis statement was either going to be zoos are helpful to animals or zoos are harmful to animals. Then we brainstormed all of the subtopics, the things that they talked about in the sources. Remember, we talked about the fact that we talked about care, we talked about programs, all right? We talked about behavior. And from there, we wrote main idea sentences to go with each of those subtopics in support of our thesis. So all of your main idea sentences should either be for zoos or against zoos. And then today's lesson, now as we're trying to find our details, we are going to use the notes we took and the annotations on the side to help us locate information that would support our main idea. This is really hard work, guys. But I will tell you that not only will your essay turn out better if you follow this process, but your reading will improve. Your reading will improve because you're looking now at text with the purpose of having to write, to integrate the information and write about it. So it is going to improve your reading process as well. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to finish our plan. So the plan you started yesterday, you should actually have your thesis statement. You have your 3 main idea sentences, and now you're ready to add your details. Remember how we did this, all right? Remember, you want to make sure that your main ideas don't overlap, that your details don't overlap. And I would like you to go ahead and finish. You're going to have about 20 minutes to finish with the details on your plan.